The air crackled with laughter and the clink of glasses, but my heart stopped when my sister, Lila, stood up, her wine glass gleaming in the sunlight. "To the broke one," she declared, her voice slicing through the picnic's warmth. Her eyes locked on me with a cruel glint. The park went silent, every cousin, aunt, and uncle turning to stare, their faces a gallery of shock and pity. I sat frozen at the picnic table, my hands gripping the edge of the checkered tablecloth. Lila's words weren't just a jab, they were a public execution. For years, she'd painted me as the family failure. Claire, the dreamer who quit her corporate job to chase a silly little bakery idea, only to scrape by, or so she thought. Her smirk told me she relished this moment, the annual family picnic where she could parade her success, her designer dress, her tech exec husband, her perfect life, while I, in my thrift store blouse, was the punchline. But Lila didn't know the truth. Not yet. I'd always been the quiet one, the one who listened while Lila commanded the room. Growing up, she was the golden child, straight as, prom queen, the daughter who could do no wrong. I was the shadow, the one who baked cookies for the school fundraiser while Lila gave the speech. Even now, at 32, I felt that old ache, the sting of being less than in her eyes. But today wasn't about old wounds. Today was about the secret I'd been carrying for months, the one that would turn her taunt into ashes. The picnic was a tradition, a sprawling affair in Willow Park, where our extended family gathered under oak trees to eat, gossip, and pretend we were closer than we were. This year, I'd volunteered to organize it, renting the pavilion, ordering the catering, even hiring the local band playing soft jazz in the background. Lila, of course, assumed Mom or Aunt Karen footed the bill. She never asked. She never had to. In her world, Claire couldn't afford a loaf of bread, let alone a feast for 50. I took a slow breath, my fingers brushing the edge of my glass. "Lila," I said, my voice steady but low, "you might want to sit down." Her laugh was sharp, dismissive, but I saw a flicker of unease in her eyes. The family leaned in, sensing the shift. My cousin Mark, always the peacemaker, cleared his throat, but I raised a hand to stop him. This wasn't his fight. "Lila," I continued, standing now, my heart pounding but my resolve ironclad. "You've spent years telling everyone I'm a failure, that I'm broke, that I'm nothing." Her smirk faltered, just for a second. "But you don't know everything." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper, a check stub, worn at the edges from carrying it for weeks. I held it up, letting the sunlight catch the numbers. "This is the receipt for today's picnic. Every cent of it, catering, rentals, music, came from me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lila's husband, Greg, shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us. "Impossible," Lila snapped, her voice high. "You can't afford this. You're barely keeping that bakery afloat." I smiled, not the warm kind, but the kind that comes from knowing you're about to change everything. "That's where you're wrong, Lila. The bakery? It's not just afloat. It's thriving." I didn't want to brag, but since you brought it up, I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "I sold my first franchise last month. For $500,000. The gasp from the family was audible. Aunt Karen's fork clattered onto her plate. Lila's face drained of color, her glass trembling in her hand. I didn't stop. And the picnic? I paid for it because I wanted to. Because I could. Because family matters to me, even when you try to tear me down." Lila opened her mouth, but no words came. For the first time in years, she was speechless. I felt a strange mix of triumph and sadness. This wasn't just about proving her wrong. It was about reclaiming my place, not just in the family, but in my own heart. I sat back down, the check stub still in my hand. The band played on, oblivious to the drama, but the air had changed. My cousin Sophie, barely 20, leaned over and whispered, "Claire, that was badass." I smiled faintly, but my eyes stayed on Lila. She wasn't done yet. I knew her too well. She'd regroup, come back with something sharper, something meaner. But I was ready. The picnic continued, but the mood was different now. People stole glances at me, at Lila, at the space between us. Uncle Dan tried to lighten things with a story about his fishing trip, but it fell flat. Lila sat rigid, Her lips pressed into a thin line, while Greg murmured something to her, probably trying to calm her down. I didn't care. I'd said what I needed to say, for now. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the park, I thought about the bakery, my little shop on Maple Street, where I'd poured every ounce of myself. It wasn't just a business. It was my defiance, my proof that I could build something from nothing. Lila had never seen it that way. To her, it was a hobby, a failure waiting to happen. But she didn't know about the late nights, the loans I'd paid off, the customers who lined up every morning for my cinnamon rolls. She didn't know about the franchise deal, the investors who believed in me, the future I was building. I sipped my lemonade, letting the tartness ground me. Lila's toast had been meant to humiliate me, but it had backfired. Still, I knew this wasn't the end. Lila didn't lose gracefully. She'd come for me again, maybe not today, but soon. And when she did, I'd be ready. The band switched to a slower song, and kids ran through the grass, chasing fireflies as they began to appear. I leaned back, watching them, feeling the weight of the moment settle into something quieter, something stronger. This was my family, messy and flawed, but mine. And for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. The picnic tables were littered with half-eaten plates of barbecue and coleslaw, but the real mess was the tension simmering between Lila and me. She hadn't spoken since my bombshell about the franchise deal, but her silence wasn't surrender, it was a storm brewing. I could see it in the way her fingers tightened around her glass, the way her eyes flicked toward me, sharp and calculating. I helped Aunt Karen stack plates, trying to focus on the normalcy of the task, but my mind was racing. I'd spent years swallowing Lila's jabs, letting her narrative about me, the broke, aimless sister, take root in the family's mind. Today, I'd rip that story apart, but at what cost? Lila wasn't just my sister. She was a force, someone who thrived on control. I'd humiliated her in front of everyone, and she wouldn't let that go. As I carried a tray of dishes to the catering van, Sophie caught up with me, her ponytail bouncing. "Claire, how did you keep that franchise thing a secret?" she asked, her voice low but excited. "I mean, $500,000? That's insane." I shrugged, setting the tray down. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Not until it was real. The truth was, I'd been terrified to share it, even with the family members I trusted. Success felt fragile, like if I spoke it aloud, it might vanish. Plus, I knew Lila would find a way to twist it, to make it about her. Sophie glanced back at the pavilion, where Lila was now talking animatedly to Greg, her hands gesturing wildly. "She's pissed," Sophie said, almost gleefully. "I've never seen her like this. You totally shook her." I forced a smile, but my stomach twisted. Shaking Lila wasn't the goal. I just wanted her to stop defining me. I wanted the family to see me for who I was, not who she said I was. But Sophie's excitement reminded me that this wasn't just about me and Lila. The whole family was watching, recalibrating their view of us both. Back at the table, Mom was trying to keep things light, passing around a tray of my bakery's lemon tarts. "Claire, these are divine," she said, her voice a little too bright, like she was trying to erase the earlier drama. I thanked her, but I could feel Lila's gaze burning into me from across the table. She hadn't touched the tarts. Of course she hadn't. Then she stood again, and my heart sank. "I'd like to say something," Lila announced, her voice smooth but edged with venom. The family quieted, bracing themselves. Claire's little announcement was impressive. She paused, letting the word hang like a barb. "But let's not get carried away. A franchise deal sounds nice, but it's not like she's running a Fortune 500 company. I mean, it's just a bakery, right?" The jab landed, and I felt the old urge to shrink, to let her have the last word. But something in me snapped. "Lila," I said, my voice cutting through her pause, "it's not just a bakery. It's my life, and it's doing better than you ever gave me credit for." I turned to the family, my hands trembling, but my voice steady. I didn't want to make today about me, but since Lila keeps pushing, let me be clear, I'm not the broke one. I haven't been for a long time. The silence was deafening. Even the kids stopped running, sensing the weight of the moment. Lila's smile was tight, forced. "Well," she said, "good for you, Claire. Really." But her eyes said something else. "This isn't over." Greg touched her arm, whispering something, but she shook him off. I could see the cracks in her perfect facade, her need to be the best, the brightest, the one everyone admired. I challenged that, and it was eating her alive. As the picnic wound down, people started packing up, but the air was thick with unspoken questions. Cousin Mark pulled me aside, his brow furrowed. "Claire, I had no idea about the bakery. Why didn't you tell us?" I sighed, glancing at Lila, who was now helping Mom fold tablecloths, her movements sharp and angry. "Because I didn't want it to be a competition," I said. "I just wanted to build something I was proud of." Mark nodded, his eyes soft. "You did, and you don't have to prove it to anyone, not even her." His words stayed with me as I drove home that night, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The bakery was waiting for me tomorrow, orders to fill, a new location to scout for the franchise. But tonight, all I could think about was Lila. She'd always been the sun, and I'd been content to orbit her. But now, I was my own light, and she couldn't stand it. At home, I sank onto my couch, the check stub still in my pocket. I pulled it out, running my thumb over the numbers. $500,000. It wasn't just money, it was proof. Proof that I'd bet on myself and won. But the victory felt hollow with Lila's voice echoing in my head, her toast a reminder of how far we drifted. I knew she'd come for me again. Maybe not at the next family gathering, maybe not even this year, but Lila didn't let go of grudges. And I'd just given her a reason to hold on tight. The next morning, I woke to the smell of fresh dough and the hum of the bakery's ovens. My little shop on Maple Street was alive, customers chatting, the espresso machine hissing, my assistant, Jamie, decorating cupcakes with a steady hand. This was my sanctuary, the place where Lila's words couldn't touch me. But as I kneaded dough for the day's bread, her voice crept in, to the broke one. I pushed it away, focusing on the rhythm of my hands. The bakery wasn't just a business, it was my heart, poured into every loaf, every pastry. The franchise deal had been a dream I barely dared to dream. A second location in the city, with investors who saw what I saw. A brand built on love, not just profit. But Lila's toast had reminded me how easily people could overlook what mattered. By noon, the bakery was packed, and I was in the zone, boxing up orders and chatting with regulars. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Can you come over tonight? We need to talk." My stomach sank. Mom never texted like that unless something was wrong. I knew it was about the picnic. That evening, I pulled up to Mom's house, the same one Lila and I grew up in. The porch light glowed, casting shadows on the peeling paint. Inside, Mom was at the kitchen table, a mug of tea in her hands. Lila was there too, sitting across from her, her face a mask of calm that didn't reach her eyes. "Claire," Mom said, her voice gentle but firm, "sit down." I did, my heart racing. Lila wouldn't look at me. "The picnic had got out of hand," Mom continued. "I know you and Lila have your differences, but what happened yesterday hurt everyone." I opened my mouth to protest, but Mom raised a hand. "I'm not taking sides. But Lila has something to say." She nodded at my sister, who finally met my gaze. Her eyes were cold, but there was something else there, something raw. "I didn't mean to make a scene," Lila said, her voice clipped. "But you blindsided me, Claire. You let me think you were struggling, then pulled that franchise thing out like a weapon. How was I supposed to react?" I stared at her, stunned. "Lila, you call me the broke one in front of everyone. You've been tearing me down for years. I didn't plan to announce the franchise deal. It just came out. Because you wanted to humiliate me," she snapped, her composure cracking. "You've always been jealous, Claire. Always trying to one-up me." "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "I've never wanted your life. I just wanted you to stop treating mine like it's worthless." Mom sighed, rubbing her temples. "Girls, please. You're sisters. This has to stop." But it wasn't that simple. Lila and I weren't just sisters. We were opposites, locked in a dance neither of us could quit. She saw my success as a threat, and I saw her judgment as a cage. I wanted to fix it, but I didn't know how. "I'm sorry," I said finally, looking at Lila. "Not for what I said, but for how it came out. I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted you to see me." Lila's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Mom reached for my hand, then Lila's, but the gap between us felt wider than ever. When I left that night, The air was heavy with everything we hadn't said. Back at the bakery the next day, I threw myself into work, but Lila's words lingered. You've always been jealous. Was there truth to it? Growing up, I'd envied her ease, her confidence, the way the world seemed to bend to her will. But I didn't want to be her. I wanted to be enough. Jamie noticed my distraction. You okay, boss? She asked, piping frosting onto a cake. I hesitated, then told her about the picnic, the toast, the fallout. She listened, her eyes wide. Wow, your sister sounds intense. But you stood up to her. That's huge. It doesn't feel huge, I admitted. It feels like a mess. Jamie shrugged. Family's messy. But you've got this place, Claire. And you've got us. She gestured to the bakery, where customers were laughing over coffee, where my dreams were taking shape. It was a reminder of what I'd built, what I was still building. That night, I got an email from one of the franchise investors. They wanted to meet next week to discuss a third location. My heart leapt, but I didn't tell anyone. Not Mom, not Sophie, not even Jamie. I needed to hold this one close, to protect it from Lila's shadow. But Lila wasn't done. A few days later, she showed up at the bakery, unannounced, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Customers glanced up, sensing the tension. We need to talk, she said, her voice low but firm. I nodded, leading her to the back office. My heart pounded, but I wasn't the same Claire she'd mocked at the picnic. Whatever she threw at me, I was ready to catch. Lila stood in my tiny office, her arms crossed, her designer purse slung over her shoulder like a shield. The bakery's hum, ovens buzzing, customers chatting, felt distant behind a closed door. Her presence here, in my space, was jarring, like a storm cloud in a clear sky. What do you want, Lila? I asked, leaning against my desk, trying to keep my voice steady. My hands gripped the edge, anchoring me. She didn't sit, didn't soften. I want to know why you're doing this, she said. Why you're turning everything into a war. The picnic, the franchise thing, you're trying to make me look bad. I blinked, caught off guard. Lila, you're the one who made it a war. You've been calling me a failure for years. I just told the truth. Her eyes flashed. The truth? You let everyone think you were struggling, then dropped that bombshell to humiliate me. You could have told me privately, Claire. But no, you wanted an audience. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to yell. I didn't plan to announce it. You pushed me. You stood up and called me the broke one in front of everyone. What was I supposed to do? Sit there and take it? You could have let it go, she snapped. You didn't have to make a scene. Like you did. I shot back. The air crackled between us. Years of unspoken resentment boiling over. Lila, I've spent my whole life letting your jabs slide. I'm done with that. She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Oh, please. You've always played the victim, Claire. Poor little Claire, always in my shadow. Maybe if you'd worked harder, you wouldn't have needed to pull a stunt like that to get attention. Her words cut deep, but I refused to flinch. This isn't about attention. It's about you not seeing me. You don't know what I've been through to get here. The loans, the sleepless nights, the times I thought I'd lose everything. You never asked. For a moment, her face softened, but only a fraction. Maybe I didn't ask because you never told me anything. You shut me out, Claire. You always have. I stared at her, stunned. Was that how she saw it? That I'd shut her out, not the other way around? Lila, I said, my voice quieter now. Every time I tried to share something, you turned it into a competition. My bakery, my dreams, they were never good enough for you. She didn't respond right away, and in the silence, I saw something I hadn't before, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But then she straightened, her walls going back up. I didn't come here to fight, she said. I came to tell you to stop dragging the family into this. Mom's upset. Everyone's talking about it. Just let it go. She turned to leave, but I stopped her. Lila, wait. She paused, one hand on the doorknob. I don't want to fight either, but I'm not going to let you rewrite who I am anymore. If you can't handle that, that's on you. She didn't look back, but her shoulders tensed. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. I sank into my chair, my heart pounding. The confrontation hadn't fixed anything, but it had clarified something. Lila wasn't ready to see me as anything but the sister she'd always outshined. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I threw myself into work, decorating cakes, filling orders, anything to keep my mind off her. But when the bakery closed, and I was alone with the hum of the refrigerators, her words echoed. You shut me out. Had I? I thought of all the times I'd stayed quiet, not sharing my successes or struggles, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't think she'd care. That night, I called Sophie. She was the only one in the family I felt safe talking to about this. Lila came to the bakery. I told her, pacing my apartment. She thinks I'm trying to make her look bad. Sophie snorted. She's projecting. She's the one who made a scene at the picnic. But, Claire, you need to talk to Mom. She's worried you two will never get past this. I don't know if we can, I admitted. Lila's never going to see me as an equal. Maybe not, Sophie said. But you don't need her to. You've got the bakery, the franchise, us. You're killing it, Claire. Don't let her take that away. Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the ache. I wanted my sister back, not the Lila who mocked me, but the one who used to braid my hair when we were kids, who'd sneak me extra cookies when Mom wasn't looking. That Lila was gone, buried under years of rivalry and resentment. The next morning, I got a call from the franchise investors. They wanted to move forward with the third location, faster than I'd expected. It was thrilling, but also terrifying. Success was coming at me like a freight train, and I wasn't sure I was ready. But I said yes, because that's who I was now. The woman who said yes to her dreams, no matter how scary they were. As I hung up, I thought about Lila. She'd find out eventually. News like this didn't stay quiet in our family. And when she did, I knew she'd have something to say. I just hoped I was strong enough to face it. The bakery was my refuge, but even there, Lila's shadow lingered. A week after her visit, I was rolling out dough when Jamie rushed in, her phone in hand. Claire, you need to see this, she said, her voice tight. She showed me a post on Lila's social media, a photo from the picnic, her smiling with her glass raised, captioned, "Family time is the best time when everyone knows their place." My stomach churned. It was subtle, but the jab was clear, aimed directly at me. The comments were full of heart emojis and praise for Lila's perfect life, but a few family members, Sophie, Mark, hadn't liked it. That gave me some comfort, but not much. Lila was rewriting the narrative again, painting herself as the gracious queen and me as the upstart. I set the dough aside, wiping my hands on my apron. She's not going to stop, is she? I said, more to myself than Jamie. Jamie shook her head. She's jealous, Claire. You're doing something real, and she can't handle it. Jealous. The word stuck with me. I'd never thought of Lila that way. She was the one with the big house, the fancy job, the husband who adored her. But maybe Jamie was right. Maybe my success, small as it seemed to her, was a threat because it was mine, built without her approval. I didn't respond to the post. I didn't need to, but I knew I had to talk to Mom again. This wasn't just about me and Lila anymore. It was about the family, about the rift that was growing wider with every jab. That evening, I drove to Mom's, my heart heavy. She was in the garden, pruning roses, her hands steady despite the tension I knew she felt. Claire, she said, setting down her shears, I saw Lila's post. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I said, sitting on the garden bench. But I don't know how to fix this. Lila's determined to keep this fight going. Mom sighed, brushing dirt from her hands. She's always been competitive. But I think she's scared, Claire. Scared you're outshining her in a way she can't control. I frowned. Scared? Lila? She's got everything. Mom shook her head. She's got a lot, but she's always needed to be the best. When you were kids, she'd cry if she didn't win at everything. You were different. You'd let her win just to keep the peace. But now, you're not backing down, and it's shaking her. Her words hit hard. I'd always seen Lila as untouchable, but maybe she was as fragile as I'd felt all those years. Still, that didn't excuse her cruelty. I don't want to fight her, Mom, I said, but I'm not going to let her define me anymore. I know, Mom said, her voice soft. And I'm proud of you, Claire. I always have been. But I want you both to find a way through this. You're sisters. I nodded, but the word sisters felt heavy, like a promise I wasn't sure we could keep. When I left, I felt more resolved than ever to focus on my work, my dreams. Lila could post whatever she wanted. I wasn't playing her game. The next day, the bakery was busier than ever, with a line out the door for our new lavender macarons. I was in my element, chatting with customers, boxing up orders, feeling the joy of what I'd built. But then Greg walked in, Lila's husband, looking out of place in his crisp suit. "Claire," he said, his voice low, "can we talk?" I led him to the back, my heart pounding. Greg was kind, but he was Lila's biggest defender. Whatever he had to say, it wasn't going to be easy. "Lila's struggling," he said, once we were alone. "She won't admit it, but what happened at the picnic, it hit her hard. She feels like you're trying to take her place." I shook my head, incredulous. "Greg, I don't want her place. I just want to be me." "I know," he said, running a hand through his hair. "But she's built her whole identity around being the successful one. When you announced the franchise, it made her feel small." I wanted to be angry, but I felt a pang of sympathy. Lila small? It was hard to imagine. But Greg's eyes were earnest, and I knew he wasn't lying. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Apologize for succeeding?" "No," he said quickly. "Just give her time. She's not as strong as she seems." I nodded, but as he left, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, and something like hope. Maybe Lila wasn't the villain I'd made her out to be. Maybe she was just human, like me. That night, I started drafting a letter to her. Not to send, not yet, but to get my thoughts straight. I wrote about our childhood, the good moments, the times we'd been close. I wrote about the bakery, what it meant to me, how it wasn't about beating her, but about building something I loved. I didn't know if I'd ever show it to her, but it felt like a start. The letter sat on my desk for days, unfinished, a jumble of words I wasn't sure I'd ever share. Every time I tried to finish it, I saw Lila's face at the picnic, her glass raised, her voice dripping with disdain. But I also saw Greg's tired eyes, Mom's worried frown, the family caught in the crossfire of our feud. I wanted to fix it, but I didn't know where to start. The bakery kept me grounded. The franchise deal was moving fast. Meetings with investors, site visits for the new location, endless paperwork. It was exhilarating, but it left little time for family drama. Still, Lila was never far from my thoughts. Her social media post had been the talk of the family, with cousins texting me support and others staying silent, not wanting to take sides. One afternoon, Sophie stopped by the bakery, her face lit with excitement. "Claire, you're not going to believe this," she said, pulling out her phone. "Your bakery's trending online. Someone posted about your macarons, and it's gone viral." I stared at the screen, my heart racing. A food blogger had raved about my lavender macarons, calling them a game changer. The post had thousands of shares, and my website was crashing from the traffic. Jamie and I scrambled to keep up with orders, hiring 2 new staff members on the spot. It was a high I'd never felt before, but it was bittersweet. I wanted to share it with Lila, the way we used to share secrets as kids. But that felt impossible now. That evening, I got a call from Aunt Karen. "Claire, I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice warm. "But I need to tell you something. Lila's been talking to the family, saying you're rubbing your success in her face. She's hurt, honey." I gripped the phone, my frustration boiling over. "She's hurt? She's the one who started this, Aunt Karen. I'm just living my life." "I know," she said, "but she's your sister. Maybe you could reach out, try to talk." I promised to think about it, but as I hung up, I felt the weight of it all. Everyone wanted me to fix things, but what about Lila? Why was it always on me to make peace? The next day, I was at the new franchise location, a sunny storefront in the city's arts district. The investors were thrilled, and I could see it taking shape, my vision, my dream, expanding beyond anything I'd imagined. But as I walked through the empty space, I felt a pang of loneliness. Success was incredible, but it didn't fill the hole where my sister used to be. That night, I finished the letter. I poured everything into it. My hurt, my hopes, my love for her despite it all. I didn't know if she'd read it, but I needed to try. I mailed it the next morning, my heart in my throat, then threw myself back into work to keep from obsessing. A week later, I got a text from Lila. Just one word, "Okay." I stared at it, unsure what it meant. Was it an acknowledgement? An olive branch? Or just another way to keep me guessing? I didn't respond, but I felt a spark of hope, fragile but real. The bakery's viral moment brought a flood of new customers, and I was busier than ever. But I made time to visit Mom, to check in with Sophie, to rebuild the family connections Lila's drama had strained. They saw me differently now, not as the broke one, but as Claire, the woman who'd built something extraordinary. At the next family dinner, Lila was there, quiet but present. She didn't bring up the letter, and neither did I. But when I passed her a plate of my lemon tarts, she took one, her fingers brushing mine. It wasn't much, but it was something. As I drove home that night, the stars bright above, I thought about the picnic, the toast, the moment that had changed everything. I'd stood up to Lila, not just for me, but for the truth of who I was. And maybe, just maybe, that truth was starting to reach her. Months passed, and the bakery became a whirlwind of growth. The viral post had turned my little shop into a local legend, with lines out the door and orders from across the state. The franchise was thriving, with the second location open and the third in progress. I was living my dream, but Lila's silence after her one-word text, "Okay," hung over me like a shadow. The family was healing, slowly. Dinners were less tense, with cousins joking again, Mom smiling more. Lila and I didn't talk about the picnic or the letter, but we were civil, passing dishes, making small talk. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a start. One evening, I was closing the bakery when Lila walked in, alone. No purse, no heels, just jeans and a sweater. She looked different, softer somehow. "Claire," she said, her voice quiet, "can we talk?" I nodded, my heart in my throat, and led her to a table by the window. The bakery was empty, the only sound the hum of the fridge. She sat, fidgeting with a napkin, then looked at me. "I read your letter," she said. It made me think. About us. About me." She paused, her eyes glistening. "I've been awful to you. Not just at the picnic, but for years. I didn't see it until you called me out." I stayed silent, letting her words sink in. This was Lila, the sister who never apologized, never admitted fault. But here she was, raw and real. "I was jealous," she admitted, her voice breaking. "You built something so real, so you, and I didn't know how to handle it. I've always needed to be the best, and when you started shining, I felt like I was losing something." I swallowed hard, my own eyes stinging. "Lila, I never wanted to take anything from you. I just wanted to be me." "I know," she said, wiping a tear. "I see that now. And I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry." For the first time in years, I saw the sister I'd loved as a kid, the one who'd shared her secrets, her laughter. I reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm sorry too," I said, "for shutting you out, for not trying harder to fix this." We sat there, hands clasped, the weight of years lifting just a little. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And that was enough. The next family picnic was different. Lila didn't raise a glass or make a speech. Instead, she helped me set up, carrying trays of cupcakes, laughing with Sophie, even complimenting my lemon tarts. The family noticed, their smiles warmer, their hugs tighter. We were still messy, still flawed, but we were family. As the sun set, I looked at Lila, standing with Greg, her smile genuine for the first time in years. I thought of the bakery, the franchise, the life I'd built. It wasn't about proving her wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right. And in that moment, under the oak trees, with fireflies dancing and laughter filling the air, I knew we'd be okay. Not perfect, but okay. And that was enough.